What's going on, you guys? It's your huggable hipster here, and welcome back to the channel. Ranni by far is my favorite character of Elden Ring. There's so many amazing, wonderful characters in Elden Ring, but I feel like when it comes to conveying a human emotion in a way that is accurate, Ranni does that perfectly. Because when we look at characters like Var, like the blacksmith, or any other type of character, they're showing one set of emotion that is when they are interacting with the Tarnished, and that's the emotion that they're going to convey. We don't see anything different besides that type of emotion. Throughout her questline, you see her journey and you see how she is represented as a doll, which is, by the way, very similar to how the doll is represented in Bloodborne. Now, when it comes to Ranni, I think I might do a separate video on her lore because there is so much lore. There's just a lot of it. There's so much to do with her and the Night of the Black Knives and the Shattering. There's a lot. So to simplify things for this video, we're just going to be going into my theory of why I believe Ranni is the extension of the Tarnished, the extension of the Self, in a nutshell. Now, this is the one thing from her questline. When you get to the end of it, and I am in her questline right now on my Xbox save, and I'm going to be choosing her ending. And for her ending, I feel like it's one of the most beautiful, besides the Duskborn. This is one of the most beautiful endings, and here's why. So when you get her ending, it's called the Age of Stars, and it states here, removing herself far from the lands between to journey out into the cosmos, allowing its inhabitants to have free will over their own choices and live their lives without the interference of the greater will, which could also be perceived as a god-type figure. What's really fascinating about Ranni the Witch is that she is by far one of the only ones that conveys the level of emotion that is to that of a human being. When you house the doll, the mini doll that's given to you that you can talk with at the site of grace, I was about to say bonfire, it's to a point of where she's kind of irritated almost for the Tarnished talking with her to a degree. And it's so fascinating to me because when you get to the point of where she's discussing her story about how she wants to kind of get rid of the greater will, get rid of a god, get rid of this need for a higher power that is controlling everyone. You get to this point in the story where you realize that, wow, okay, the greater will and the fingers and everything are the controlling factor of what is basically the god in the game. And what's really fascinating is that you have this moment in time where in the game, all of these characters are basically telling you how you should be God-fearing to an extent. Even though that's not the words that they used, that's kind of the annotation that's given. Which actually, there's another point in her questline when you get to the Eternal City of Nokron, you have the Finger Slayer blade. And the reason why this is important is because in its description, it says, cannot be wielded by those without fate. Because when you go to the Eternal City of Nokron and try to open the chest, it reads in the description that this is not in your fate or this is not fated, paraphrasing. But it is said to be able to harm the greater will and its vassals. So basically, once Ranni gets a hold of that, she is destroying the god of the game. She is destroying the greater will, which is a very human thing. Symbolically, think about it. Like she is destroying the need for a higher power so human beings, the Tarnished, can have control over their own life and not worry about anything governing their free will, which is basically what Miquella is trying to kind of reverse, because Miquella, through his fascist dictatorial ideals, wants to control people through kindness, by forcing kindness onto people who don't, like, they might not want to be controlled in that way. They want to have their own free will, their own governing principles and morals that guide them through what they learn, through what they see, through how they live their life. Like I said in my Elden Ring review, it's not the age of darkness, it's not the age of fire, but the age of compassion that guides Miquella's dictatorial fascist regime into power. When we see her current state of being, when we see the doll, but we also see this phantom spectral version of her, it's kind of the imperfect nature of what humanity is, right? The fact that she has to hibernate for so long to regain strength, the fact that she is sending us and Blyde and EG on these missions to be able to have her ending come to fruition for the Age of Stars is the most human thing ever, because when we see that we have to kill kind of a version of Blyde in the game when we're going on her quest line, And then at the very end, she thanks us. She's like, oh, that was a match well fought and everything. But then she says at the very end, tell Blythe and E.G. I love them. I hate it because it's so emotionally jarring to hear that level of love and sentiment out of it. Basically an NPC, you know, for the most part, unless you like go and you finish her quest line and you finish her mission and everything like that. It's a line that can really stick with the player because you're seeing this admiration, this love for others that we don't normally see in a Souls or Souls-like game that From Software has created. Sure, there are characters that will emotionally hit us in Dark Souls, in Bloodborne especially, but I don't think I've ever seen a creation of a character that is as human, both empathetically speaking and morally speaking, as Ranni is. When I first heard that line, it made me so incredibly emotional. I was like, oh my God, this hits on so many different levels emotionally, and the story and everything. This is why I think that, you know, she is what the existential representation of the Tarnished is, because she has that empathy, she has that love, she has anger, she has fear, she has a peace about her that is quite representative of what being a human being is. She cast her great rune aside in order to find something that was meaningful for her, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people can relate to, of where the typical path might not be for you, but something outside the box might be. Ranni just wanted to have emotional, mental, and physical freedom away from the greater will and the fingers. It's the same thing for the Tarnished. Whether the Tarnished realized it or not, the Tarnished wants the same thing. And the Tarnished kind of act as like a bit of a pawn throughout the game. They don't speak. They don't do, you know, a lot of emotional, how do I even explain it? They're not really like expressing themselves emotionally. The world around them is. There's so many different ways that Ranni expresses herself, and the way that her story is governing itself and moving itself forward within the game. Is this a perfect theory? It's not a perfect theory. It's a work in progress theory, because there's so much psychology that goes into this game. There's so much that can be taken apart and pieced together within different parts of the story of Ranni, as well as every other character, quite frankly, within this game. You guys, that was my theory crafting video for Ranni the Witch. I think I might do like a proper lore only video for people who are new, who want to understand her character a little bit better, because at first for me it was a little confusing. So I think I might sit down and actually like take different sources and everything like that and compile everything into one huge video. And I think it would just be really cool to sit down and do like a lore based video with some theories a little bit thrown in there as well. But if you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. May you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I will see you all in the next video. Umbasa.